Hi, welcome to day 450. Here we go. We're on the downhill last 10% of 500 days with NTI, and congratulations on making it this far. Today, what I want to do is I want to go over NTI 1 John chapter 4 with you. Of course, we did NTI 1 John chapter 3 over the weekend. First, let me just review the opening part of NTI 1 John chapter 3, and then we'll jump over to NTI 1 John chapter 4. The awareness of God is an awareness that is pure and looks on only that which is wholly true. This awareness is within you. It is the core of what you are. It is in operation as God now. However, you're not aware of your God awareness because you have allowed that which is false to be held in your mind as true. This is what is meant by purify yourself. You must make the decision to release all that is not true from the mind, because that which is not true is false, and so it is an obstacle to the total awareness of truth. And those two paragraphs really describe what NTI 1 John chapter 4 is all about. NTI 1 John chapter 4 is about taking on that task of removing the false from the mind. And remember, the mind we saw is the creative principle of God, the mind of consciousness. But you do that work within the individual mind. You do that work right here. When these energies from the creative principle come into your mind as a specific thought, that's where you do this work of letting go of the false and embracing the true. Letting go of the false and embracing the true. That's our job. This was introduced to us back in Nti Matthew chapter 13, all the way back near the very beginning, where it talked about the sorting of thoughts. And it said that when a thought comes into our mind, we need to ask, am I going to put my faith in this? Remember, faith is both desire and believing attention. Am I going to put my faith in this thought? So we have to decide now where we're going to stand. Am I going to keep believing those thoughts that point down to manifestation as true, the egoic thoughts? Or am I going to start giving my attention to those thoughts that come from the right mind of consciousness that point back up towards truth? Where am I going to place my faith? Where am I going to place my believing attention? Nti Matthew chapter 13. So let me go to Nti 1 John chapter 4. It begins, dear child, I have already told you, excuse me, dear child, I have already told you that the work to be done is the sorting of thoughts. Nti Matthew chapter 13, way back there, right? I've already told you this. This includes the sorting of feelings, beliefs, and images. Because everything in the fourth principle of God, everything in manifestation is coming from these energies in the creative principle. In fact, the next sentence says, everything that you experience within the dream of the world comes from one of two sources. The thinking mind, which is the mask of separation, which we could call the ego, or we could call it the wrong mind of consciousness, or the false ideas in the mind of consciousness, or the Holy Spirit, which is the true desire of the heart, which is the desire to know thyself, know the truth, the right mind of consciousness, that which points back to truth. Everything that you experience within the dream of the world comes from one of two sources. The thinking mind, which is the mask of separation, or the Holy Spirit, which is the true desire of the heart. every thought, every feeling, every belief that you seem to live by, and every image, which means every perception, every image that you seem to see or hear, everything you experience through your senses, every thought, every feeling, every belief that you seem to live by, and every image that you seem to see or hear speaks the thoughts of one source or the other. Speaks the thoughts of false, not true, but let's make it true by God, because we want an experience different from truth. Or speaks the energy of, let's return to truth. Let's wake up. Let's know thyself. Every thought, every feeling, every belief, every perception comes from one source or the other. Your role. Your role is to discern the source of the thought, feeling, belief, or image, and then decide if you will accept it or if you will believe it, if you will put faith in it. Your role is to discern the source of the thought, feeling, belief, or image, and then decide if you will accept it based upon its source. So when we look at, let's say, a news story, and there's some kind of a controversy going on, and there's this pull to take a side. What this is saying is that instead of trying to decide which side is right and which side is wrong and taking a side, all we need to do is say, does this perception of this, controversy come from the wrong mind of consciousness, which is focusing on believing the world and separation? Or does it come from the right mind of consciousness, which is pointing back to truth? Is this false or pointing towards truth? It's the only decision we have to make about everything. We don't have to decide what our opinion is, which side of the controversy we stand on. Just, is it false or does it point towards truth? And if it's false, we let it go based on that alone. If it's pointing towards truth, we embrace it, right? So your role is to discern the source of the thought, feeling, belief, or image. Is it the right mind or wrong mind of consciousness? What's the source of this manifestation? Your role is to discern the source of the thought, feeling, belief, or image, and then decide if you will accept it, if you will believe it, if you will accept what it teaches based upon the source. The only thing that matters is, does it come from the right mind or the wrong mind? Does it point towards the world as true, or does it point towards truth? So all we have to do is, with every thought that comes into the mind, with every emotion that we feel, with every perception that we experience, all we have to do is think false or true, or at least points toward truth. It's a reflection of truth. False or true. And if it's false, we don't have to think anything else about it. We don't need an opinion. We don't need a side. We don't need a judgment. It's false. We disregard it. This is how we purify the mind of the false. It talks about some of the things that we will perceive, or some of the thoughts that will come into the mind that come from this wrong mind of consciousness. These are scattered throughout Nti John chapter 4. I'm going to kind of skip around and read them, so you might want to just listen instead of trying to follow along. But here are some of the energies. And this is not a total list. Just to give you an idea, these are some of the energies that come from the wrong mind of consciousness, from focusing on the world as true. Fear, guilt, hatred, death, lack, limits, competition, victimhood, personhood, the idea that I am this person, strife and fighting, sickness, death is listed again, rage, sorrow, helplessness, hopelessness, control, loss, and I'll add unworthiness. So these are the examples of the types of energies that come from the wrong mind of consciousness. It's focused on the world as true. And so when these types of energies are experienced as thoughts, as feelings, or as perceptions, maybe you perceive someone else out there as hopeless, these are things that are just false. They can be let go. In fact, Nti 1 John chapter 4 says, and this is italicized in the middle of the page, the awareness of God looks on nothing that is false. So all that is false need not be looked on by you. You don't have to believe it. You don't have to give it your attention. You are permitted to imitate God in this way. The awareness of God looks on nothing that is false. So all that is false need not be looked on by you. It's false. That's a manifestation of the wrong mind of consciousness. That's a manifestation of the wrong mind of consciousness. That is not true. That does not point to truth. That's all we have to do with it. Nti 1 John chapter 4 also lists some energies that point to truth. So these are the ones we want to embrace. Again, they're scattered throughout the chapter, so I'll just read them. You can just listen. Don't try to follow along. But one is peace. Right? When we feel the energy of peace, when we perceive peace, you perceive peace often like in nature, that can be embraced. That points toward truth, that peace. Acceptance, right? Accepting everything as they are. In other words, the opposite of judgment. Acceptance. In fact, judgment is another wrong-minded energy. I don't know if I listed that one. Peace, acceptance, trust. There's also this feeling all is well. That's an energy of the right mind. Peace, acceptance, trust, joy. Of course, here's some other energies. Well, it lists acceptance again. It lists joy again. It lists peace again. It also lists gratitude as an energy that points toward the truth. Welcome, right? Welcoming everything. That's kind of like the loving all method. Welcome, right? So these types of energies, these opening energies, you might be able to feel the opening in all of them. These energies point towards truth. And these are the energies we want to embrace. Nti 1 John chapter 4 says, God is love and love is everything. And we looked at how that's true over the weekend when we looked at Nti 1 John chapter 3, right? Love is giving through consciousness to consciousness that which consciousness requests, right? So God is love and love is everything. And then again, it says the thoughts of everything are these. So when you're in line with seeing everything as God or seeing everything as consciousness or the manifestation of consciousness, that's when you feel acceptance, joy, gratitude, peace, and welcome. This is really the loving all method, right? The loving all method, that practice is seeing everything as consciousness. And so you feel acceptance, joy, gratitude, peace, and welcome with everything because you see it as consciousness, the expression of consciousness. This takes us back to Nti 1 Timothy. Verses 13 to 16 say, God cannot be denied fully because God is the truth that is at the core of you. I talked about this over the weekend too. That life is at the core of you. That isness is at the core of you. And remember, that's the only thing you've ever been asked to be. God cannot be denied fully because God is the truth that is the core of you. To deny God is to deny yourself. And this cannot be denied fully, because to deny it fully would be to deny existence. And you know you exist. Existence cannot be denied because it is, right? It is. And in fact, one of the things we're doing during the awareness, watching awareness process, that meditation, is we're just focusing on that isness. We call it awareness, right? We call it consciousness. We could call it the I am presence. We could call it the sense of being, the sense of existing. We just focus on that. We're bringing our attention to that. And you know, when we bring our attention to that, that is creating a right-minded energy in consciousness, which becomes manifest in some way, which pulls us and others further along the spiritual path towards the realization of truth. Nti, 1 John chapter 4 says, existence cannot be denied because it is. This is the truth that sets you free. In accepting this thought that you are that isness and it can't be denied, and accepting this thought, which cannot be denied in any present moment, you accept that God is and you are one with God. In this thought, you accept yourself, and you do it with the joy of recognition. And then it says something interesting. It says, now that you have accepted yourself, follow yourself home to the full and complete awareness that is God. So once you accept yourself as consciousness, as the I am presence, as the existence, which is the only direct creation of God, as that Son of God, once you have fully accepted yourself, once you have awakened to the second principle of God, follow yourself back to the realization of the first principle of God. That's what this says. Now that you have accepted yourself, follow yourself home to the full and complete awareness that is God. You know, Nisargadatta Maharaj used to teach from the perception that you're a person, to focus on the I am presence. That's like the awareness, watching awareness meditation that we're doing. Focus on that, and you will wake up to that as what you are. But then he said, continue to focus on that, and it will take you beyond itself. So this awareness, watching awareness meditation, and also the loving consciousness meditation works too. These meditations wake you up from the idea that you're a person, from the idea that you're a body, mind, personality in a world, to the realization that you are the I am consciousness, the pure consciousness, the second principle of God, even prior to the creative principle. But then if you continue to practice these types of meditation, they take you beyond that to the first principle of God. They're called direct path methods, right? So existence cannot be denied because it is. That's what we're doing, focusing on that during awareness, watching awareness. Existence cannot be denied because it is. This is the truth that sets you free. In accepting this thought, which cannot be denied in any present moment, you accept that God is and you are one with God, second principle of God. In this thought, you accept yourself, true self, and you do it with the joy of recognition. Now that you have accepted yourself, follow yourself home to the full and complete awareness that is God. The whole path is laid out there, right? The whole path is laid out there. And this helps us see how important the awareness, watching awareness, and the loving consciousness methods of meditation are. NTI 1 John chapter 4 ends with, at verses 20 and 21, to love God is to know God. And to know God is to love all things, because all things come from God, which is love. This really points to that loving all method again. So we can do the awareness, watching awareness, or the loving consciousness practice while we're in meditation. And when we're not in meditation, we teach the mind that everything is consciousness, that consciousness is all that is real, by loving everything as consciousness, right? As the expression of consciousness, as the manifestation of love. To love God is to know God, and to know God is to love all things, because all things come from God, which is love. And it says to not love is to believe in falsehood. So if there's some perception out there, or some thought, or some emotion, or some idea about myself that I do not love, I'm believing in the world. That's the wrong mind of consciousness, right? To love everything as consciousness is to move ourselves up to the realization of consciousness. That's the loving all method. Also, the meditative loving all method, right? When we're challenged in doing that, this is how the meditative loving all method that I demonstrated last week is helpful. So as we go into the first week of our last 10%, tomorrow you will listen to an audio, which will teach NTI 1 John chapter 5 and NTI 2 John. And then on day 452, you'll read NTI 3 John, and of course have a walkabout practice. And then after that, we move into Jude, which I mentioned is also advanced, but the video from this past weekend should really help you with Jude. So on day 453 and 454, we're going to read NTI Jude. And then on day 455 and 456, we'll read the first chapter of NTI Revelation. And that NTI Revelation Chapter 1 is one of my favorite chapters in all of NTI. Of course, every day you'll have walkabout practices. Of course, every day you'll practice awareness, watching awareness meditation. And then this weekend, you will have a weekend assignment, which includes listening to a teaching of the code, which is a message I received from Inner Wisdom, which really talks about how the creative principle works in great detail, in very technical detail. So you'll listen to that this weekend. Now, one thing I want to say is, since we're at day 450, whenever we're at the 50s, like 150, 250, 350, 450, I've always prompted you to make a donation to actualize.org, which is Leo's website. Since this is 450, this is the last time we'll hit a 50, which means this is the last time that I am going to prompt you to make a donation to Leo. Although we've been listening to my audios lately, in the last 100 days, we have watched several of Leo's videos. We saw Create an Experience of No Self, What is Happiness, Mindfulness, a guided exercise for realizing you are God, and how to do self-inquiry. That's 5 videos. Also, in the next 50 days, we're going to do 1 or 2 more Leo videos, including advanced tips for self-inquiry. So really consider making a donation. In fact, this is the last time I'm prompting you. And so think about all that you have gotten from Leo in these 500 days. And go to actualize.org and leave a donation for Leo in his tip jar. That's my request. And as you know, I will follow through and do the same. A really healthy donation. Even though I've made several, this is the final thank you. And you know, it's just a way of showing gratitude for these teachings that come from the right mind of consciousness. You know, putting our money there is really, it's a symbol of our believing attention, our acceptance, our faith, our gratitude. So that's it. I will see you next week. Have a good week. I love you. Bye.